people, real stories, real recovery advice.
People's pronouns and how to address are important in their identity. When I don't see
Even if it's not a recovery, it's real stories, real recovery. I am Kat, and I'm on the road of recovery.
Because traditionally, history predicts future behavior, right? They always say the greatest indicator of future behavior is past behavior, right? Oh, that football team has won for 5 years, they're probably going to win, right? Oh, that person's got good grades, they're probably going to get good grades. Well, recovery is a space that challenges the narrative, right? It challenges the narrative because when a person enters into recovery, generally their history is not a predictor of the future. Their history is usually filled with things that you would say aren't so successful, or poor choices, or symptoms of the disease of addiction. And so what happens is people get into recovery, they flip this narrative, and then they turn into these individuals that strengthen themselves, strengthen families, strengthen communities. And as you can see, they are changing the world. We are innovation.
Hi, my name is Stefanie and I'm from Medina, Ohio. I am a person in long-term recovery from drugs, alcohol, and an eating disorder. I am an executive director, I am a mother, and I am a wife. Bye.
Stefanie, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule today to come and talk with us here at On the Road to Recovery. We're here at Hope Recovery Community, and we're very glad that you were receptive and allowed us to come out and say hello to you today. So thank you.
Thanks. I'm glad you're here.
Yes. So I want you to describe your childhood. So talking about family, trauma, abuse, support, mental health, family members, anything that you'd like to throw in there. So describing your childhood.
Okay. So pretty typical childhood, I would say middle class America, every opportunity in the world. At age 5, my parents got divorced. And then at age 10, they got back together with each other, right? And so most people are like, oh, that's so cute. Well, it wasn't that it was bad. It was just, I came from a home where we had like this no talk thing. So we didn't talk about fears, insecurities, vulnerabilities, failure. We didn't talk about anything. We talked about the Browns and the Cavs and now the Guardians. So those were hard conversations, but it was all like shallow. And so when my parents got back together when I was 10, literally it was like after school one day, your dad and I are getting back together. We bought a house and we're moving in. And there was no like conversation around that. So as a kid, I had fears and insecurities around that. And in my mind, I just wanted that happily ever after. Because I think everybody really wants their happily ever after. And so at that point at 10, I took that on myself. And was like, if I'm just good enough, if I'm smart enough, if I'm all successful enough, that'll keep my family together. And that really started my road with perfectionism. My dad's favorite phrase growing up was, Stefanie, got to raise the bar, right? And that was a great lesson, except again, a house that we didn't talk. And so what my dad was saying was just have high goals and shoot for those goals. But all I heard was, you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And so that started me down this path of always just feeling not good enough. And our culture is really good at telling us, like, we're not pretty enough, we don't have the right hair, the right car, the right man, the right girl, whatever it is. And I just really struggled with that up until high school. Yeah. And then I met a boy. Right. And he, of course, told me how good I was. And so that was like my first relationship. And that turned into an abusive relationship. And I didn't tell anyone because the perfect girl, right? The golden child. I played soccer, basketball, and softball. I got good grades. I mean, we even had like a white picket fence. Yeah, it kind of is like now, but like that was my life. That girl, in my viewpoint, was not a girl that got verbally, physically, and sexually abused by a boyfriend in high school, right? That was like the after-school special that happened on Wednesdays when you rushed home, and and it was my life in this town that just like, it just felt like we couldn't talk about those things. And so that's when I started to turn to drugs and alcohol to really start to numb that pain and those struggles.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So describe when your addiction started becoming problem.
Yeah. So really it's drinking and using drugs in high school like picked up. So that abusive relationship, we broke up like, I don't know, 40, 50, nobody knows that type of relationship. But so that was like a week to week, day to day thing. But the drugs and alcohol were always there. Like, I just remember that. And that summer before I went to college, I broke up with a boyfriend. So that's, so then I went to college, and I played Division I soccer. And I had to stop drinking and stop doing drugs, like right away, because I'm now an NCAA athlete. Yeah, living my dream. And I didn't like how I felt anymore without it. The soccer field used to be the place that the world disappeared, right? Like, all the stress, all the pressure, all the anxiety. I was so confident that freshman year, all that went away. And I remember stepping out on the field and feeling insecure, feeling anxious, because my love had really turned to drugs and alcohol. I didn't realize at the time it wasn't soccer anymore. So that freshman year, after our season, the day after, I quit, threw away my scholarship, which I was reminded for years when I paid those student loans. And that is when everything escalated, because you took that away from me and I took it away from myself. But then I just really partied really, really hard. It went from, again, like, not while I played soccer, because I just couldn't do that, but before, a couple nights a week, the weekends turned into weekdays, and the weekdays turned into every day, and then the time of day just started to shift up. And when I was happy, that's how we celebrated. When I was mad, that's how we grieved. When holidays, for every story I have, that was that we did this and then this. Yeah. And then I always noticed I was kind of the one, that was kind of to the extreme, even in my extreme group. So college is where it really escalated for me.
Do you mind if we talk about your eating disorder?
No, go ahead.
So let's start there. So when did you start developing the eating disorder?
Yeah. So I went to Bowling Green. I graduated from college with honors and addicted to drugs and alcohol. I would bring report cards home, and my house was a performance-based house. So if you did good, you were good. Right. And so I'd bring that report card home and they'd be like, great job, give me money and send me back to college. Right. And I was a mess. Scares of pregnancy, STDs, high risk behaviors, destroying people's lives all around me, like boys especially. Graduated from college. Then I moved to I moved to Colorado. Massive escalation in the types of substances I was using, because I went more towards the West Coast. So that's where heroin and speed got introduced to me. And I was always like an equal opportunity. It didn't matter, whatever came my way. Colorado is where I started to have what I would call disordered eating. So I found that was another way, and Bowling Green, I found that was another way to not feel. So I could use food in ways, whether it was restriction, binging, or like excessive exercise. I could use food to navigate emotion. I just didn't want to feel. I didn't like the way real life felt, and I wore that mask so long that you kind of lose who you are. And so when I came back from Colorado, I got a real job in the real world, and they drug tested, so I couldn't do drugs anymore. And so I could only drink, and it wasn't enough. And so, I had actually gone on a date with a bodybuilder who had shared a story about binging and purging before a competition. And most girls would have been out the back door. And I was like, ooh, tell me more. I wasn't all that intrigued with him. He was a great guy. But like that concept, again, I never thought that was going to be a girl like me.
Yeah.
I just thought these things, I always thought these things happen to other people. Well, other people, and when I was in Colorado, and I'll share this, I also had an abortion when I was in Colorado, and that created an internal struggle, and I didn't tell anyone. So again, it's just all these things that, again, once I couldn't do drugs, so I needed that. So I went home and I binged and purged like the next day. Before I knew it, I was doing that 15, 20 times a day, weighing myself obsessive. Like, just everything gets out of control for me, like, really fast. I did seek help. I went to Laurelwood Hospital because I was with a counselor who identified that I had an issue. And she somehow got me to go. Laurelwood had an eating disorder, outpatient eating disorder at the time. And so I was like, okay, I'll have them assess me. I don't think they're going to recommend. And they did recommend their program. And so it was PHP, which was like 40 hours a week. So I did I did the PHP, and then I did IOP at Laurelwood for like 3 or 4 months. I finished it, I guess, but I never fully got honest. Yeah.
Did you experience an aha moment eventually?
Yeah. I ended up, I don't know how much longer after that. So I went back to everything tenfold. I had that second abortion. I was living with a guy that I really didn't like, because that's what I did with relationships. I just moved in. I thought that was dating. And so, and then he cheated on me. And even if you don't like people, when they cheat on you, it's still so harmful. And then, I lost an aunt and uncle within like 48 hours of each other. It's cliche, but when it rains, it pours. Like, it just does. And I went straight back to what I know. I mean, that's the thing with mental health and substance use disorders. My eating disorder and alcohol was so comforting to me still. Like, it just, when life got difficult, it's what I know at the time. And people would say that's so ineffective, but I found it incredibly like effective in my version of my narrative. And so I just went back really hard, and you just don't put your toes in. You jump back in head first until it just got super, super out of control. And then that same counselor was like, I think maybe inpatient. And I was like, you have lost your absolute mind. And she's like, forget inpatient. Will you make a phone call? And that was the day, that was an aha moment with doing the next right thing. Like, it was just like, I didn't need to worry. I was never going to agree to what was going to be 3 months of inpatient residential treatment. Never going to agree to leave the state of Ohio. Never going to agree to go to a place that, like, a horse farm in Virginia. Like, never. But I would make that phone call. Well, that phone call led to that next thing and that next thing. And then before I know it, I went to inpatient treatment, a little over 15 years ago. And there was a sign. You pulled into this horse ranch or whatever it was, and there was a sign that said, expect a miracle. And I just remember just being like, screw you. Like, I was like, that's a dumb, like, I wanted to rip that sign out of the ground. It was really little. And for the first few weeks, I was what they call non-compliant patient. I don't like rules. I don't like being told what to do. You're taking away everything. I had to go through the refeeding process, which is absolutely brutal. I had to address my drugs and alcohol. I didn't know I was a traumatized person until my counselor made me put up all these signs in this office. We went through my life story, and that was my aha moment. It was, I viewed trauma in a different way. I thought that meant something different than it was. She said, you're one of the most traumatized people here currently, Stefanie. And that was just like a, whoa, And so that was a moment. And then I looked at my life and I was like, you suck at being in charge of your own life. And I wanted a different life. And then I felt like I was going to miss my purpose. And I was like, you get one shot. Like, you don't want to miss it. And I just felt like higher power had these like big plans for my life. I felt that, like, you've got to do this to be able to help other people. It's 15 years later. And I just live in this next right thing one day at a time. I've had the opportunity to do great things in recovery, and my recovery is just it's become like a calling on my life to just live it for myself, but also live it to provide it for other people. Like, just to provide that opportunity for other people to access recovery. And so today I still work a program. Today I still work, I still go to meetings. I have a lot of sober support. The more I keep coming back and the more I return, the more I learn I don't know. And so I love that about recovery. Today I'm married and have 2 kids, and we own a home, and we have jobs in the field, and we own cars that we like. We go on vacations that we like. And today it's such a fulfilling life. I'm not like, oh, people in recovery have a better life, but I do think we get a different view. And when I was able to practice the principles of recovery in everything I do is when my life changed, really in recovery. And so 15 years in, it's just it's so much joy, and it's so much gratitude and acceptance. Just getting to live life in that context is such a gift.
Yeah.
Such a gift, yeah.
What kind of stigma do we face as people in recovery? I should say this. What kind of stigmas have you faced?
Yeah. Well, I think oftentimes, people look at me today and they're like, oh, but you're not like them. Because I came in with a college degree. I came in, when I went to rehab, I was making 6 figures. Like, they perceive that I had it all together, or they perceive me now that I have it all together, neither which are true. So, and I teach a lot on stigma, and I think overall, I used to say, like, the disease is the problem, not the people that have the disease. And now I'm like, no, it's not the disease. It's not the people. It's the system. The system is still problematic. And we have systemic foundational issues because most of us grow up, even those of us in recovery. When I was a little girl, I had an image of what people who struggled with drugs and alcohol looked like. It was stereotypical. It was fed by the media. It was fed by these, like, images that subliminally, like, it entered my mind. And even now, when I go teach, everybody talks about the guy under the bridge who is unhealthy, unsanitary, has the brown paper bag. And yet we work in the recovery field. That's not what it looks like the majority of the time. It's not just the views we have of him. What we really have to address is the thoughts, emotions, and judgments that surround those. And I think stigma kills people.
Absolutely. What have you learned from your addiction?
Everything. It has been, being in recovery and working through a substance use disorder, working through a mental health condition. It's been everything. It's given me everything that I currently have today. It is such a gift. And I know that can be hard, for people early in recovery. And I didn't think that either. I did not like that early on. But, now I'm so grateful. Again, I just have a different perspective, and recovery has given me the ability. I always talk about, I used to have this office that had a window, and it's Ohio, so a lot of times when you looked out that window, it wasn't the greatest of weather. And I could complain about that, and I could, oh, this sucks, blah, blah. Or you can look out that window and be like, wait, I'm in an office that has a window. Hello? And recovery's giving me that perspective of gratitude and acceptance. And I don't know, I just feel like that is that's what gets me high today, and being able, my goal is to be able to parent my children that they'll never see me use a substance, but I just the next right thing, one day at a time. That's the only thing I can really worry about, but it's given me everything. For those that are currently still in active use, I just want to say that you are so loved. You are so loved. You are so valued. You are so appreciated. And that's unconditional. That's the thing. This isn't about, oh, I like you, I love you, or I'm going to help you if you do what I desire. That is not what it's about. It's just, I love you for you and who you are. And we care about you. And they're hope is a real thing. And I always say hope doesn't need to come in buckets. It's just a tiny little slither, a crack in the window of life can possibly be different. And it really can. And it's going to blow your mind, So when you're ready, in your way, in your time, in your ability, we're here to support you. We're here to walk with you through active use. We're here to walk with you through moderation. We're here to walk with you through this process of change that recovery is. And you just don't have to do it alone.